Friendship is a precious gift. Now I grew up during the 60s and 70s. I was a bit older in the 70s than the 60s, so I remember most of the 60s via documentaries and such. I do remember there was just an awful lot going on in the 60s, and I didn't think much of it because that's the only thing I knew. So there was things like, first grade I was let out early because of the assassination of President Kennedy, and I remember my parents crying and all the other tumultuous events. I also remember the Beatles, my mother buying the first Beatles single. There was a lot going on musically. There was Woodstock. There was some negative things, like, as they mentioned, some assassinations, so more than kind of an unusual amount in the 60s especially. And then there were other things like Watergate with the resignation of the president. And then there was Vietnam. And I remember Vietnam fairly well because they ended the draft when I was 17 years old, so I was getting really close to that 18-year-old, being drafted. And as time went on, the war was getting more and more unpopular, a lot of negativity in the U.S., even amongst the veterans. So I do remember the Vietnam War quite well. And this story kind of is the Vietnam War as a backdrop. It's about a soldier who comes back from the Vietnam War, and he arrives in San Francisco, and he decides that he wants to call his parents. So he calls his mom and dad, and he says, "Mom and Dad, I just got back into the States." And they said, "Oh, that's great, son. We're so proud of you. We're really glad you served your country well." And he says, "I'd like to know if it's okay if I bring a friend back with me." And they said, "Sure, son. That's perfectly fine. You can bring anyone's welcome into our house." So he says, "Well, there's something I should tell you, that this friend was injured during the fighting. He stepped on a landmine and he lost his arm and his leg." And he said, "Well, his father said, "We're really sorry to hear that, but we'll make sure to make him feel welcome. He can come to eat dinner, come and visit us." He says, "Well, I'd like him to actually come and stay with us for a while." And then there was a bit of a pause, and then his father said, "Son, I don't think you realize what you're asking, because someone who has a handicap such as that is going to be a big burden on our family, and I think it's really probably best if you just let your friend, find his own way, let him, I'm sure he'll be okay on his own. Just let him figure out how to deal with his handicap and how, where he needs to, if he needs to live somewhere, he'll figure out a place to live." At that point, the son just hung up the phone, slammed the phone down, and about 2 days later, parents got a call from the San Francisco police, and they said that their son had died and that he had fallen off a tall building, and they think that actually it was a suicide. So the parents, obviously being very distraught at that point, hastily flew to San Francisco to identify the body. And when they got there, they went to the morgue, they looked at the body, and it definitely was their son, but they also noticed something that was quite unusual, that their son only had one arm and one leg. Now, these parents actually showed some traits that I think are in all of us to some extent. And what it is kind of the concept that we all try to make friends with people that, kind of friends out of convenience, people that we get along with. Of course, that's natural, but people that we get along with, but also people that maybe are the same race as us, the same politics, the same religion. We tend to go by convenience, and if we, we choose people that are on the same level, education level, same, as I said, religion, things like that. So the idea of friendship, we tend to sometimes exclude people for no other reason than maybe they look different than we do, or for some other reason. It's just purely an exterior reason. or they're from a different country, and things like that. And friendship itself is something that's in your heart, and it is something that grows, and you don't really know what it is, but when it happens, you understand it, and you know that it's happened when you become friends with someone else. And it's something that's a special gift, because when you have a friend, that friend will listen to you. That friend is like precious jewel, actually. That friend will talk to you when no one else will talk to you. They'll listen to you. They will. They'll give you advice. They'll give you words of wisdom. Friends are very special. And what I'd like to ask you, and even myself, it's very hard to do, is to open your heart to making friends with everyone, because it's possible to do that. In other words, there's no one that you can't make friends with, although some people you just may not be able to easily make friends with, and the common ground may be fairly common, really common, but you can make friends with everyone on some level. And I think that that's a good thing, because in this world we need more people that are friends rather than enemies, because enemies cause a lot of the problems that are in this world today. So I'd like to challenge you to do that. And the story that I told you today really kind of exemplified from a parental point of view, how kind of not open up your heart, negativity that can cause. And lastly, if you do have friends, make sure to treat them well. Mr. Toastmaster.